Welcome back to another episode of Harmonious at Lunch, the show that fuels your business success. I'm Brandon Gano, your host and guide through the world of harmonious business growth. Today, we're unlocking powerful strategies with industry experts to help your business thrive. If you're a business owner, entrepreneur, or executive, you are in the right place. Join me and our incredible guests today on the journey to clarity, growth, and success. It is time to revolutionize your approach to business. Let's dive in with another episode of Harmonious at Lunch. Welcome back into some more bite-sized business advice. In today's episode, we're talking about leading in the age of digital disruption. It's going to be a fun conversation. I have a very special guest with me, and this is an important conversation. A lot of people are navigating the world of leadership, maybe for the first time as a small business owner or entrepreneur, building a team, or maybe just going to a new position. So always a relevant topic. Mike Peterson, welcome to the show, and thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me, Brandon. I really appreciate the opportunity.
So I'm curious, from your perspective, leading in the age of digital disruption, we rely so heavily on tech. I know you have a background in IT, so maybe you like that, but the leadership world has changed in the last decade for sure. But as you look past over the past, 50 years, with some notable leadership books that have come out, it's an entirely different landscape out there. So what do you see from your perspective about the new age of leadership?
Yeah, such a great question, and I think we all struggle with this a little bit, right? We're constantly hearing about new disruptions, new waves of technology that's taking the world by storm, and I think uh, the interesting theory that I've come up with is that you can no longer really be a good leader just by having leadership qualities. You need to take this kind of blended hybrid approach with a human-focused leadership style, but really wrapped around technology. So in the book that I just wrote that came out in early April, um, I talk really about three main leadership competencies, which is trust, transparent communication, and accountability. And all of that needs to be wrapped in an air of what I call servant leadership. Servant leadership has been around since the 70s, coined by Robert Greenleaf, and I use it very differently than he used to use it. Right, in the 70s, technology was very different, and so what I mean about servant leadership is really making sure that your team has the technology that they need to succeed, and be effective, be efficient, and really grow your business. So there are pieces of leadership that haven't really changed for a long time, right? The trust, communication, accountability. But what I talk about in the book is really, instead of using technology as a tool to lead, you lead through technology. So it needs to be really integrated into everything that you do as a leader.
Oh, I like that distinction. Talk me through that, though. I mean, explain maybe in real life examples what the difference is between tool versus actually leading through technology.
Yeah. So I was previously an IT executive at two different public companies, and have a lot of a large network of IT professionals who talk about challenges of implementing technology. And a very common story that I hear is, well, we just spent $2 million on this really fancy tool, right? We implemented SAP or Workday or whatever their tool might be, some Oracle product, and no one wants to use it. And the most common problem that I see is that it was really drop shipped, right? Someone had this great idea. Okay, let's go purchase this tool. It gets implemented, and it's just like, okay, well, here it is. Go have fun with it. But leading through technology really means incorporating technology into the culture of your business, into your process, into how you lead, whether your team is sitting next to you across the hall or across the globe. in another country. And so thinking about a communication tool, for example, if a company implements Slack as a chat tool, right? You don't want to make sure, or you don't want to have Slack be just a sidebar conversation hallway where people who like Slack can talk to each other, right? If you want to implement a communication tool, it needs to be an area that everyone uses, right? Whether you're an executive, whether you're talking about project teams, corporate communications, corporate announcements, uh, information for benefits or onboarding, open enrollment, whatever that needs to be. And so companies need to really think about um, how they're going to lead through this technology and really incorporate it into their everyday life before they make that decision to purchase it and drop ship it into the company.
Yeah, it's interesting because this is we're going through this at my company right now. We've rolled out a new tool for um project management really is the core of it, but also, where everything in the company lives. We're not sponsored or anything, but Notion, I actually happen to love Notion. So, hey, if you guys want to sponsor the show, be happy to. But we're rolling this tool out, and I'm curious to know the best way to do this because some of the team loves it, some of the team hates it, and the adoption curve is steep on a tool like that. Other tools you mentioned, SAP, I don't know if you said Salesforce, but these are just some that come to mind where it is a learning curve. It takes adoption by people, and a tool is useless if not everybody's on it. So
Yeah.
how do you actually walk through that so that, from the executives down to everybody who needs to use that tool is does have it ingrained in their work life and their day-to-day process basically?
Yeah. I think Notion is a really great tool, and can certainly add a lot of value to companies if it's implemented properly. And a great uh, kind of example of leading through technology with Notion as this piece of technology, it really needs to be part of what you do. I'm saying you as in the company, what the company does every day, right? And so thinking about, um, it's not just a way for managers to project manage individuals on their team, right? The overall larger project groups that the company has should all be using Notion to track their projects. All of those projects should wrap into department goals that are managed within Notion, and all of those department goals should all funnel up into corporate goals that are managed in Notion. So I've seen organizations where they have a project management tool, but when it comes to managing corporate goals, the CEO and the executive team says, I don't really have time to do that. We're not going to manage corporate goals in the tool. We're going to just have this be for everyone else. But it's really important, and I say this in the book a number of times, that leading by example is really one of the only surefire ways to make sure adoption spreads throughout the organization. People copy the behaviors that they see from the top, and so um, it would be a huge impact to the organization for at the next all hands meeting, the CEO is presenting, using some kind of metric or graph or chart, project plan that's put together in Notion about how all of these projects are rolling into corporate goals, right? And once people know that there's uh, this accountability that's going to roll all the way up into the top, people will start to see like, oh wow, this really matters, and this is important to everyone as far up as the CEO and hopefully the board as well. So that's a short answer, but I can certainly go on to give more details if you'd like.
No, I mean, it makes complete sense, and I'm reminded of the phrase "rules for thee, not for me." Right? Leading by example is if you're not going to use the thing or practice the behavior, or whatever it may be, then how could you ever expect others to do the same and follow? So I love that example. I want to talk about kind of the other old school type of leadership and how that transitions into the new digital age, again, some more practical ways, open door policies and management by walking around. I mean, these are great things, right? In old office buildings when we used to go to those things, and of course, some people still do, but it's a different age that we live in. It's a hybrid and digital age. So what do these practices look like in terms of both communication and relationship building between management, employees, leadership, all across the organization? How do we bring those philosophies and bring that to today's world?
Yeah, yeah, and it's an interesting time back then, right? You could just kind of peek your head up over your cubicle wall and say like, hey, what are you working on right now? And or catch up with someone at the coffee machine. And now you don't really have that. And I think one of the most important aspects of today's world is treating everyone consistently. So you have, whether you're hybrid or in the office with only a few people, remote, right? Make sure you treat the people who are in the office the same way as you treat the people out of the office. So we want to make sure that we don't have favoritism or triangulation, and that means hearing something that your leader said, not from their mouth, right? Someone else is telling you what they said. I had a leader that I worked with in the past to come in and do a trust assessment, and he led a fairly large organization with some of them in the office and some of them both remote within the US, but also in other countries. And very quickly, I started to see this common cycle of behavior repeat throughout his team. And so he would say to his remote people, he would say, "Oh, well, let's talk about this next time you're in the office 2 weeks from now." But he would have the conversation that same day with the people who are sitting in the office. And of course, those people would take that information and talk to their remote colleagues to say like, "Oh, did you hear this yet?" Whether it's good or bad news, the remote people have the same reaction that like, "Oh no, I haven't heard this," and and no matter how accurate people are, there's always a little bit of this game of telephone, right? When they hear something through someone else, there's a certain degree of change to the message. Whether that's good or bad, it's still not beneficial for the business. And so we really need to think about how do we change our behaviors as a leader to be consistent across our organization for how our organization is built today.
Yeah, that's that's you're just making me laugh because it's like it's a very real and probably obvious situation, but for some reason there's still a lot of leaders stuck in the past that think employees are not going to talk to each other. Like you think the virtual team's not going to hear that a week and a half at least before you said they're going to hear it.
Yeah.
Um, Very interesting. That's a side topic. But anyway, um, also looking at the other piece of communicating with a virtual team is, and you mentioned it before, Slack, right? Like these text based communication tools, and email's been around forever, so this isn't new. But how do you advise leaders to make sure we're communicating effectively and we're not being misheard or really misread by people? I think that's got to be one of the most common issues with written communication is that there's no tone, there's no body language, and sometimes you can misperceive what someone's actually saying if you don't know how they communicate that way. So,
Yeah.
how do we bridge that gap?
Yeah. That is $1 million question, and I talk about this a lot in my book, and it really comes back to trust. And I feel like trust is often a word that gets thrown around, but
Mhm.
is more often than not misunderstood. And so when I talk to executives in other companies, I hear, "Oh, well, Brandon's remote. He's working on this project. I don't need to talk to him for another couple of weeks because I trust him to do this work." And they think, okay, well, if I just leave him alone, that shows that I trust him, so everything should be great, right? But that is really not what I believe trust is in this modern era. I think trust uh, is defined as the mutual belief that we're operating in the best interest of the company. And so the only way to build that is to effectively plant a garden, right? You can't just say, I trust you fully, Brandon. You now say you trust me, and mean it, please. Um, and will be great, right? You have to kind of repeatedly show through communications, through actions, through behaviors, through your values that you actually do want what's best for the company. And that takes a lot of effort. And so it comes from uh, um, having empathy, showing vulnerability, but also things like building relationships. And one of the another very common mistake I see that is so easy to fix is companies that have these department wide meetings with no video on. It's really hard to build a relationship with a black square on your screen that says MP on it, with a picture of me holding my dog. But if my video is on, it doesn't matter if I'm in my PJs. It doesn't matter if I'm, kind of in the car in on the way to my next meeting. But it shows that you're human, right? Humans like to build relationships with other humans, and having that video on in these calls is incredibly beneficial. And it's really only awkward the first couple of times you do it. Once you build it into the culture of your organization, it just becomes natural. And I think it's incredibly important.
And then it becomes awkward on the flip side. If someone does have
Yeah.
their camera off, what
Yeah.
are they dead? What's going on?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's really okay as a leader to say, hey, Melanie, your video, I see your video's off. Can you turn it on, please? And 9 times out of 10, the excuse is not a great one. So you can still encourage them to turn their camera on, but sometimes it's okay not to. But at least you're showing that accountability. You're making a comment about it and encouraging your team to do it.
Yeah, the excuse is, I'm at the beach and I don't have a green screen, so I'm going to keep it off. Like, that's fine. That's totally fine. You work from the beach today. But I actually, another question about that is, and then I'll let you go. This building relationships virtually. Um, this might be another $1 million question that I don't have the answer to, and I'm kind of hoping you do. How do we do that effectively? Because I mean, I have a client who recently, all virtual company, always has been. This is not a COVID thing. They've existed long before COVID. And they recently met at a conference with some of their other team members, in person. It was the first time they were meeting after like 5 years of working together. Their relationship went to the next level in a matter
Yeah.
of hours versus what it had been for the previous 5 years. And they had a great working relationship, but there is something missing virtually versus the commonalities, or not the commonalities, but the relationship you're able to build physically with somebody.
Yeah.
How do we bridge that gap as a virtual company or even a hybrid company? Um, and how do we do it in a way that makes sense? Because I don't know if 100% office makes sense. I also don't know if 300-person offsite makes sense once a
Yeah.
quarter. So what's the balance there? How do we
Yeah.
navigate that?
Yeah. And I do think it's a good question, but I don't think it's $1 million question, maybe a
Oh,
$100,000
fantastic. Save
question.
me some money here.
We have a roadmap of what works in person, and we can apply that to our hybrid or remote setting. So of course, flying people out to meet in person is pretty much always going to be the best option. But as you said, not every company is going to have the money to be able to justify that. If you can have it built around like a conference or a client meeting or some event where half the company is already traveling, that's great. But if not, there are methods that we've been using as a society for decades, and we forget that when you apply these methods in a remote setting, it can be very effective as well. Things like happy hours, for example, right? So many people build relationships just by saying, hey, Frank and team, you guys want to go get a beer after work? It's a little bit harder to buy the beers of the team when you're remote, but it's certainly possible to send people a gift card or send people, they do alcohol shipments now, or or non-alcoholic drink shipments, and just schedule time to have this remote happy hour. And it can be very fun to get people together and kind of see their homes, do home tours, meet dogs, meet family members. When teams are in person, oftentimes there's quarterly or semi-annual get-togethers and events, and so you can very easily find companies that do remote cooking lessons, and they ship ingredients to your door, and you can learn how to cook a specific meal as a team and then eat it together, have a remote meal. There are digital escape rooms that are designed to be completed fully remotely. People miss having that open office environment where they can just pop in and talk to someone. A leader can very easily schedule digital office hours and say, here's a Zoom link, blast it out to their department or the company if it's the CEO, and say, I'll be here for an hour, and it's solely just to spend time with you. Whatever questions you have, I'm here to help, whether it's personal or professional. And people can pop in and pop out whenever they want. It's easy to get caught up in the everyday and forget to take that time to build the relationship when you don't see them in the hallway. But it's very easy to apply in-person techniques to remote teams.
Yeah, I like it. And you're right. We've been doing it. There's just maybe a new way or a new tool to accomplish it. So I like that perspective. And thanks to COVID, I think it kind of spurred that stuff. I mean, there are now companies that specialize in virtual team building with escape rooms and other things you mentioned. So a lot of cool options out there, and you're only limited by your own creativity in some cases.
Yeah.
So Mike, this was a fantastic episode. I appreciate it. The book you mentioned just came out. Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you.
I'll toss your website on the screen. Where should people go and buy it? And remind us of the title one more time.
Yeah, the book is Leading in the Age of Digital Disruption, and you can buy it on Amazon or wherever you typically buy your books. It's spreading to more and more retailers across the web.
I love it. Well, thanks for being here. Thanks for spending some time with us. Wherever you're watching or listening, go check out the show notes down below. The link is down there. You can learn more from Mike and Leading in the Digital Age. We'll see you next time on Harmonious at Lunch. Thanks for listening to another episode of the Harmonious at Lunch podcast. Make sure you subscribe on whatever platform you're on, and we want to invite you to join us in the Small Business Success Facebook group, our private group where guests and listeners come together to grow your business. We want impact-driven entrepreneurs who are ready to go to the next level in this group so we can all share ideas, collaborate, and grow our businesses together. Go to whatif.com/group, and we want to invite you to join today. See you on the next episode of Harmonious at Lunch.